Welcome back to What's the Truth podcast, Karibuni, where we discuss issues on family, education, thematic issues on business, Kenya and its environs. Today we are pleasured to have a guest, Professor Michael Bowen. Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here and to share my experiences. My hope is that it will benefit somebody, the experiences that I've had in life, in my career, education, family, and many other areas.
Karibu sana. Thank you for giving us your time. We are most honored. So today,
My pleasure.
We want to talk about yourself, delve a bit deeper into yourself. You are a very private man, so I hope today we'll be able to discuss certain issues that in other platforms we might not.
Right. We'll try.
I will also try my best. Now, I want to give you a chance to explain where you were born and a bit about your family, your upbringing, your parents. I understand your mom was involved in business and your siblings. So what did this look like?
Thank you, Amos. I was born quite a while back. Let me not say one, but close to 58 years now. In Keria Valley. Keria Valley is in the current Elgeyo Marakwet County. And born to my parents have passed on. Both my father and my mother are actually business people. My father would trade all the way. Those days would bring livestock all the way to Kenya Meat Commission here in the river. He would go all the way to Kampala to sell goats and so on. My mother was a business person in the sense that of keeping livestock. Basically, that's what she used to do. But she brought us up. I come from a family of 4, 3 brothers, one sister. And when I was growing up, my mother she hosted a missionary, Miss Armstrong, who started the missionary work, the preaching of the gospel in my area, Keria Valley. And my mother was the host to this missionary. I think that's how I encountered to know about Jesus Christ, through her preaching. But then, of course, I grew up, but then my current status, I have a family, very interesting, also 4 children, and very interesting, the same thing, 3 sons, 1 daughter. So that's my family, married to Rosemary. Yes, and welcome. I think maybe for now, that's enough. I'll say more about other areas.
Immediately after that, you went to primary, then secondary, where you achieved good grades, then did an undergraduate and a master's in Egerton University, studying agricultural economics, then a PhD in environmental economics at Moi University.
Right.
Currently, you sit as a director at CMA. You chair the Human Resource Department at CMA. You've also served from 2006 to 2012 as the chair of the International Development Bank. 2006 to 2013, you are head of research at Methodist. Currently also the principal at Daystar University, Nairobi campus. Member of the Senate and the Board of Management. So, Chef, what drove you from your parents' running of business, their upbringing, your family, and also you mentioned you had an experience with a missionary. How did all this build up towards all these leadership roles that you have today? Is it that you were born with the skill? Did you learn it? Where did you pick it up from? Is it something somebody could pick up? How do we get to this level?
Thank you, Amos. I think first and foremost, I want to thank God for those achievements. Yes, maybe I could have done more, but want to appreciate where I am. So my education, I think I did very well as far as education is concerned in terms of grades. Started in a primary school called Capso in Kerio Valley, went to St. Patrick's in 10, one of the famous high schools then. Did very well, just like you said, I don't want to repeat. And that basically that was my journey in terms of educational journey. Very interesting, like I was telling you, this missionary, I think the gospel got into me very early, actually. It must have been about 6 years or 7 years. But then as a young person, of course, when you grow up, you find that you've gone out of, you want to please your peers, you know. So because of that, you go out of Christ. But then in Form 5, life was very empty for me. And I think that's when I remembered the joy that I would find when this missionary would visit. And I remember that kind of joy. And I said, this life is too empty. And therefore I decided that I think I wanted that thing that the missionary had. And that's when I actually got born again in high school in Form 5. And I think then I think that was the turning point in my opinion. And of course, just like I said, I want to thank God for all the achievements. And since then, one thing led to another. I think leadership began right from the university. Of course, I did a lot of things in the Christian Union. I was a leader. Even back at home, I would go to the local primary school, taught in the secondary school nearby. And I guess that was part of the making of the leadership in me. The experiences I've had have shaped me. One of the things that I've learned is how to not only to be a leader, but how to appreciate leadership, how to make sure that we acknowledge and stay under leadership, basically. I think the greatest trouble that I see in the current world is that nobody wants to stay under a leader. Everybody wants to be a leader. And that's a tragedy. You cannot be a leader if you don't know to stay under a leader. I'm one person that really respects authority and leadership. I think if I were to find something that has helped me, I think that is what I have always done. Whenever I'm put under a leader, I'm very faithful to that particular leader. I comply and I support the leader fully. So I think that's one of the principles that I've come to learn. The other one is about, I think, networks. I think that is something else. Basically, I'm not a shy person. I'm an outgoing person, and one of the things that I don't like seeing things going wrong. Even when we came to Shokimau, and we realized that there were a lot of things that were not right in terms of the roads, in terms of water, in terms of many things. I mean, I just found myself leading. So those are some of the things that. So I think again, like you said, that is the aspect of leadership being inborn.
Okay.
I cannot tolerate to see something going wrong.
Okay.
I quickly rise up and take up the challenge. It is also about sacrifice, and leading people can be very difficult.
Yes.
So you are trying to do your best to help, and they are complaining. I think I understand Moses in the Bible when he was leading the children of Israel. So, but basically, maybe I leave it there for now. But this is how, in my opinion, these are some of the things that I've seen. But then, even as people complain, as a leader, you also don't give up. You know that. And that's a call to leadership. The call to leadership is a tough job. And you have to learn to work with people. Sometimes even people you don't like, they're not like. I mean, the people you lead sometimes are different.
Mm.
But the moment you become a leader, all those people are under you, and so these are some of the things that I've learned. But of course, also just to say that God also opens doors. So part of what, for example, to be the chairman of Industrial Development Bank, IDB Capital, I think the leadership at the national level realized I do a lot of grassroots work, in the church, in the school, where the primary school, the secondary school, and I do a lot of work. I think that is what happened. So probably they realized that I was doing work at the grassroots level, and they thought probably I can also help at the national level, and that probably even maybe the same of, and I think probably that is what happened. The same with my current position as a director at Capital Markets Authority. Yeah, and of course, I think also at Industrial Development Bank, when I got in there, we had the capital. This was a bank, a government bank that was lending money.
Yeah.
When I got in, we had about a capital of about 700 million. By the time I left, we had more than 1 billion Kenya shillings to lend. So again, I think that was something else that happened. Yeah.
I have so many questions.
Yes.
So one, you mentioned about, I will tier this.
Mm-hmm.
We started out on leadership,
Mm-hmm.
and you've mentioned about being true to a leader and staying under a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are times that come when your views differ with the leader. So how do you manage this? Still being true to the leader, still being loyal, yet expressing your views and pushing for your views to move forward in spite they might not have such legroom, or at the time your leader does not seem to give so much support to your views. And partying also, you've mentioned about being a leader and having people go as fast to rebel against you. Like we've seen this in Kenya now,
Mm-hmm.
where we had recently the Gen Z protest. We have so many people who are also protesting. Is it doctors? Is it teachers? As the leader, how also do you manage when you have sort of what you would go as fast to call instability among the people that you're supposed to be leading?
Thank you, Amos. One of the things that we need to recognize is that leadership is God given.
Yes.
So when you find somebody as a leader in a certain position, the first thing to take note is that God has placed that person in that position of leadership. If you have that view, then it's not only about this person that is in the position of leadership.
Yeah.
It is God that has placed that person, and God is not is not unable to remove that person if He wanted to. God would also have prevented that person from getting into that position of leadership. Now, when you get to know that, then you know that it's not even about the person in the position of leadership. It's about the order that God has put in place. And that is my reasoning behind respecting the leader. And I agree, it's possible that my views would be different from the leader. I mean, and I'm under many leaders, even currently.
Yeah.
Ranging from church to where I work, and even at the community level. You can have different views. But with that perspective that this is somebody that God has put in position of leadership, then the way you even present that difference of opinion is very important. Most leaders really, it's because I don't think they have any problem with you helping them. In fact, the moment you are under a leader, your job is to help them. You're not supposed to shine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a mistake that most people make. You now that you know something better than the leader, you go ahead and shine. And what are you doing? You're actually undermining the authority that God has set. So when you have something, you go to the leader, you tell them, I think this is what I think we can do.
Yeah.
And take note that even that which you say we can do, it is actually his. The moment you give it to him, it's his or hers. So it's up to them to run with this. Now, so that's what we are supposed to do. And then, of course, if you also realize that, I mean, there are many opportunities. If you think under a certain leader you're not doing well, and they're not listening to what you think is good, maybe God is also saying, can you get out of that leadership? Go somewhere else. So you can also start your own leadership, you know. So this is something that people don't understand, but it is wrong to undermine an authority that God has put in place. When David had been anointed as king, Saul was still the king. Sid actually was still in the office.
Yeah.
And at some stage, even David had the opportunity to kill Saul, and he didn't. He said, I cannot kill the anointed of the Lord. That David gives us a lot of principles as far as leadership is concerned. So that's the kind of thing that we are supposed to have. Now, yes, even when you are a leader, people may not like you, people will undermine you. And that, again, when you get to the position of leadership, as a leader also, that's when you should also mature enough and expect such things. And one shouldn't be worried so long as you know that it's God that has placed you in that position. Until your time is up, God will keep you there. Of course, humanly speaking and using the wisdom of God, you also need to put your house in order. If some people are undermining you, it is your responsibility as a leader to call them and say, what you are doing is not right. Maybe give them a chance twice, 3 times. After that, you tell them, my friend, if you think if you don't like my leadership, it's very easy. Just please, why don't you just excuse yourself? And if they don't excuse yourself, if it is a place where you can write a letter to them, tell them write a letter to them and tell them to go. So I that's one of the things. So, but then I think you did ask a very important question. So what do? You have an elected position, for example.
Yes.
You talked about Gen Z. Any leader, you would know that these are our children, you know. Forget about crooks, you know. What we saw, in my opinion, the first demonstrations we saw, I saw something very good, in my opinion. You had people that were not destroying anybody's property. They were letting people do their jobs, you know, and they were just demonstrating with water and with a phone, you know, to take selfies.
Yeah.
And it was tribeless. For the first time we saw.
Yeah.
And this is and so there was a fresh breath. But I think somebody hijacked that kind of thing. But we pray that is what we need, even as a nation. In any kind of leadership, you'd want young people to express themselves. And say what they think is not right. But again, civility. One of the things that I disagreed with the young people is that they also seem not to respect leadership. I think calling leaders names, I think also that was very wrong, in my opinion. But otherwise, I think the principle was very good. That we are saying that we don't have money as a nation, but then we see West. So, in my opinion, I think I thought, and I think even the government accepted that, you know, and that's why they had to cut certain budgets, and you can see the positive aspects of this. But like I was saying, I think, of course, some people jacked it, ran away with it, and so it became a total something else different. So I think, yeah, that's what leadership is all about. Leadership is a tough job.
Yeah.
If you are not called into leadership, you can't survive. If leaders tell you the things they go through, it's not an easy. So it is only people with a call that will survive leadership without being insecure, because you know that it's God that has called you. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
we have two things that are coming up as well. Is from your leadership roles, you sit both in private and in parastatals that are government appointed. So one of the hugest challenges that we've been seeing, especially on parastatals and government side, is communication has been an issue. So what's one of the ways you could breach these communication challenges so that the people who you are leading can be able to really understand? I understand there are certain situations or certain aspects of leadership that you're not able to communicate. They're sort of private, non-disclosures and so on. However, still there's a way we could bridge this gap between what we are able to see and what the leader is being able to see. Again, also, you on the academia side, you also have been in leadership for quite a while, so you've been able to see certain generations from millennials to Gen Zs. What are some of these nuances among generations and leading them that you've experienced?
There's one thing about human beings.
Yeah.
All those, whether generation, the millennial or generation Z or Alpha, they're all human beings.
Yeah.
And I agree with you totally. What human beings seek for is once they pass a point of view, they want to be assured that you've listened to them. So for me, the first thing that is very critical is to understand what the people are saying and telling them that you've understood, you've noted what they are saying, and whether you are able to solve the issues or not, that's not even very important. It's for you to tell them, yes, I've heard you, I've listened to you, I hear you are saying this, and that's a communication actually, because they are communicating. So you should be able to say, I've heard you say this.
Articulate very well what they're saying.
Correct. I've heard you what you are saying.
Yes.
And then now you're able to say, if it's something they're asking, you say, maybe they're asking three things. You say, we can do one, we are unable to do this two because of this reason and this reason.
Yeah.
Or we will do one now, in the next 6 months we'll do the next one, and we need more funding, say, for example, before we can do all these others. So that is very, very critical. Now, like I said, in spite of the generations, human beings are human beings. The Gen Z, the Generation Z, for example, I think this is a group that has been brought up with a lot of media exposure to media. So I think the greatest challenge for me is that the culture of the nation seems to be changing, because now it's no longer, the influence is not only from Kenya or from parents. There is influence from other quarters as well. And I guess maybe that's why we are seeing young people even not being respectful of elders. I mean, for us, it was really a big shock.
Yeah.
I met, I was in Dar es Salaam, I think last week, and I met a lady from Rwanda, and she was so shocked that we are calling our president names, she wondered, So again, that's a different culture from our culture.
Yeah.
So I think teaching, the fortunate thing with teaching, and I want to encourage many people to be teachers and lecturers if you can, is that I'm in touch with all these generations.
True.
I hear them. I allow them to speak to me. In my class, it is agreed there are no right or wrong answers. And we want to listen to every voice, So I think that is one of those things among the different generations. I try to understand them. I try to understand their language. So basically that's what I do, and I realize that people reason. What people normally like is the biggest challenge with leadership is when you become a leader, you're up there and you're not coming down. It is important for you to come down and know and interact, with the people down here, because
Yeah.
that's when now communication and information passes. It's very easy in the bureaucracy of leadership for you to sit up there and now, because you have maybe these other levels of leadership, the right information may not actually get to the top, and that becomes a problem in itself. So the overall leader doesn't know what is going on among the citizens, among those people that are being led. So this is something we and I've seen it even where I've been working before. Trouble brewing because of the leader doesn't understand what is going on at the grassroots. So it is very important for a leader to always find ways of understanding the people you lead. That's very important.
I want to speak again on your intersection between academia and financial services, especially just to remove the mystic of certain institutions like Industrial Development Bank. Unless you're a very savvy businessman or investor, you wouldn't really understand much what goes on there. So what's the kind of work that is done at IDB? Again, also the same, unless you're a very savvy investor, you wouldn't pretty much be involved with CMA as much. So bonds, equities, derivatives, all these types of financial instruments. So what is the work that you do at these organizations and have done, and how can we get more in touch with these organizations? Or are there opportunities for anyone, as much as, again, we are competing against very savvy investors for the same?
Thank you, Amos. I think one of the things that I've come to realize, for example, the capital markets.
Yeah.
Many people, they have no information, and yet this is a very good investment vehicle for most people. Instead of going to start a shop or raise cows or goats, where the risks are very high. Anything can happen to a shop. You may have people not buying. You may have thieves coming to steal. A cow can die, a goat can die. Very rarely in the business world do you get profits that like currently you invest in government bonds and treasury bills, for example.
Yeah.
The current rate is about maybe 14% profit.
Yeah.
And I can almost say you almost do nothing,
True.
But if you go and plant maize or maybe vegetables, cabbages, what have you, there's the likelihood that it may not rain, insects might come. And so even getting a profit of 10% or 20%, 14%, that would be very difficult. So you are very right. There's a lot of lack of information. In fact, recently we organized, and this is what Capital Markets Authority, we have an education department. In fact, I think one of the things that we'll try and do is to see whether we can even go to churches. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I think they were in the university where I'm a leader, and it was very interesting. Even the professors don't know about these things. So it's not only the common mwananchi.
Right.
But then now we are able to get information to our students. We're able to get information to our faculty and to our staff. And I think we also need to target charges, in my opinion. In fact, we'll organize and see whether we can have one. But that information is available. So yeah, this what in Kenya, I think there is a lot of lack of information. The other day we had a career fair, and I realized there are actually many jobs, and young people are saying there are no jobs. We had Ministry of Labor come to talk to us about the jobs available.
Yeah.
We had people from Institute of Human Resource Development, and I just even me, I was perplexed
Yeah.
to see the number of jobs that are actually available, both locally and internationally. And here, young people are saying there are no jobs.
We are
There's a young man, I think,
competing.
in Ruiru.
Uh-huh.
that is, I think it must be call centers, and they say that they like Kenyan people because our English is good,
Yeah.
and then I think we're also hardworking, and I think he employs. Well, did he say about 200 people every month? Young people, and
Yeah.
you work at night, so you can still go to school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are many opportunities that are available. Yeah.
My question then moves to IDB.
Mm-hmm.
What's the work that's done there for?
Okay.
Mhm.
IDB, and I know you. Sorry, I think I didn't respond to that part. Industrial Development Bank. The if you remember in the 70s, before the commercial banking sector was developed, so
Uh-huh.
government had to step in to fund enterprises.
Yeah.
So the government would put in money so that you fund enterprises. But after the commercial banking sector was well developed, the role of IDB, Industrial Development Bank, really reduced to some extent, because then the banking sector was able to fund most of the businesses. But then I think the recent developments in the banking sector also, with government borrowing a lot from banks, what happened was then the banks reduced their lending to private sector.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that then the importance of that. By the way, since then, the Industrial Development Bank has actually been merged with another two organizations. Now the name is called Kenya Development Corporation,
Okay.
KDC.
Yeah.
And it still does the same job.
Yeah.
Basically, is to identify bankable businesses that can do very well, but the banks are unable to fund because of the risks involved. So basically, that is the job of Industrial Development Bank, which now has turned into Kenya Development Corporation.
So we've been seeing very few listings on CMA.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a push for a couple of years to increase the listings, increase the opportunities for equities.
Right.
Also, again, there was a point where it was gone as far as to we are trying to introduce municipal bonds. What has been the progress on that? We are not seeing any move. Is it that it's internally CMA is being unable to pick people up, or is it that we don't have good businesses? However, we are seeing growth on GDP. Is it that in real terms there's no growth? It's just in numbers.
So one, the Capital Markets Authority is the main role of Capital Markets Authority is to regulate
NSE.
the capital markets, to regulate the capital markets. That's its job. But it's also supposed to advance, to support the development of the capital markets as well. That's part of its role. Yes, what happened was that we had, actually this was more of an international economic issue. When the interest rates in the US went up, then our foreign investors decided to pool their money to go and invest in the US. I mean, basically in US and Europe. So that was one of the key things that actually happened. And because of that, then our equities, the ones that are listed. So we had, actually the market really went down, like we are saying. But since then, there's been quite some improvement. But then in terms of the equities is coming up. You're talking about companies that are listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. We see a bit of improvement as far as that is concerned. But also, the interest rates again in the US are coming down, so the investors are actually coming back. Yeah, but also it has also to do with a difficult economy. I think that is part of it. So you're asking about growth in the economy. If you look at the way we calculate the gross domestic product, the GDP. Sometimes when we build a road, for example, we count that as part of GDP. So when people are trying to look for money and for a road before the way it produces over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So like the expressway, for example, we might feel its impact maybe in the next 5, 6, 10 years, So sometimes you see growth and people are asking, where is we are not seeing money in our pockets. These are some of the things that we do as far as GDP is concerned. So I think that is something that people need to understand, so that sometimes we see economic growth of 5%, 6%, and people are asking, but we are not feeling it. Infrastructure takes a while, and that's where Kenya has mainly been investing in. But I think it's a very good thing. It's actually laying a very good foundation. The railway, you're talking about the roads, and so on. So eventually we'll start seeing this bearing fruit. But of course, tourism has been growing. In fact, that's one sector that has really been growing. The hotel sector, tourism, has really been growing, especially domestic tourism as well. So this is something that has been happening. But the biggest challenge that Kenya has been facing is the loan.
Yeah.
I mean, out of 10 shillings, you're using 6 shillings to pay the loan. So you only have 4 shillings to do development, pay salaries, and all this. Yeah.
We've been refinancing a bit.
Yes, we've been refinancing. Yes, I agree. We did refinance, and it's because the government had very little leg room to maneuver. In fact, my thinking is the the capacity to tax the population is no longer. I mean, we've reached the limit, and that's why you hear people are complaining. So just like if you look at developments that I make as an individual, I have to take loans.
Yeah.
If I waited until I buy the land where my house stands, by the time I get enough money, this land would have gone up by almost 2 times,
Yeah.
So you can't avoid loans, but I think, of course, I mean, we must do it, and the key thing is invest the borrowing in the productive sector. Then the money comes back, and you're able to pay the loan. I think that's the most important thing.
So if I'm getting you right, you're saying we should be ready and waiting for tightening of belts for a while.
Yes, and no. If you look at what's happening in the economy currently,
Yeah.
my prediction is that next year the economy should be doing very well.
Okay.
One, because of a number of fundamentals that we are seeing.
Yeah.
I think, including the housing. When the government talks about housing and it creating jobs, it's true. You have young people, and there's a lot of debate about exporting our labor.
Yeah.
So my question is, would you have these 5 million or so young people staying here waiting for the economy to improve, or you send them out there and they earn something and they start remitting back? In fact, one of the key pillars that has been helping our foreign exchange to stabilize in terms of the exchange rate has been those remittances. If you look at the figures, but also they are getting skills even when they come back here.
True.
They bring in technology and other skills, and therefore the country is able to develop. So I'm thinking that we should be able to grow, especially with, yes, I know we refinanced, but I think we paid quite a bit also. So there's some room also to invest some of the money in development, and I think we should be able to see better economy from next year, in my opinion.
So let me move you to education.
Yes.
So you're involved in both high school and tertiary education.
Mm-hmm.
So what have been the trends? Again, also, we've just recently seen there's been this HELB, the financing model.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of debate. People are saying we should move to the previous model, and there's this new model that's been improved or introduced, and it's being called an improvement. However, there's still been a lot of backlash. From your view, do you think it's an improved model? Should we move back to the previous model again? What do you expect in the education industry? What's the competition as well?
Mm. Yeah, thank you, Amos. I think one of the things that we see, you talked about trends in the education system. The CBC system, the competence-based curriculum system, I think it's a great idea. This idea that everybody must get a white-collar job, be employed somewhere in an office somewhere, has been our undoing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of those things, in my opinion, that is very important. That's one trend. And then this thing of also grades alone, must get an A or a B or C plus. I mean, not all of us are wired that way. And therefore, I like the TVET system, the technical vocational educational and training system. I think that is what will, because it gives skills. The moment somebody graduates in TVET, they are not saying, give me a job to sit in an office. They are saying, I want to do, They are given tools and they are actually able to do it, whether it's plumbing, masonry, whatever it is, salon and all this. So that is what will help us as a nation. And I think that's one trend that we are seeing. So young people are being taught to reorient themselves, to know that you are not going to school because you are waiting for somebody to employ you, but you are going to employ yourself. And I think that for me is a game changer as a nation. If we get it right, I think that would be the right thing. At the university level, yes, I think we see this funding model.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, Amos, universities, especially public universities, were collapsing, and they're going to collapse if you look at the debt that they have.
Yeah.
Because that system, that funding model was very wrong. You find a parent that used to pay about 200,000 shillings for their son, for their daughter in high school.
Mm-hmm.
When they get a position in the public university, they pay 28,000 shillings per year. And this is a parent that is capable. They've been paying 200,000 shillings, 300,000 shillings every year. And because of that funding model that we used to use, so the public universities would never survive. I mean, so for me, I think that was the wrong thing. So one of the things that I really agree with this, the current funding model, is that we are now able to categorize you and say, when your son, your daughter was in high school, you used to pay 200. You can't come and pay 28,000 shillings. So let this child from a disadvantaged family pay less. Let the parent that is able pay more, And now you'll see, in fact, I think one of the universities, I think Embu University, and I think this is public knowledge, so I can say this, because of the new funding model,
mm-hmm.
they're actually doing very well in terms of their finances. So what was going to collapse the universities was basically the funding. So if we can pay, so that those of us that are able to pay the market rate, and then of course then the government comes in to support those who are unable, because the government can't fund everybody. All these students in public and private universities, you can't do that. So on that account, I think it's a good model. There is need to check how we are categorizing people. I know a student I support, the parent really is very weak financially.
Yeah.
And she was categorized under band number 5. That means she's almost the richest according to that model, except only one. It goes up to band 6. So we need to change that. And my proposal is very simple. These people have come from high school.
Yeah.
The head teacher would know who was struggling,
True.
in high school.
True.
And we should use that information to be able to categorize these students. And I think it is the best model. The government cannot fund university in totality. That would be very difficult. So I think this, from an economic perspective, the current model would bring in a lot of efficiency. And I think, and let me also tell you, university education is not like basic education. It should not be for everybody. If you can't, you've already gone up to high school, Form 4, you can always go to a lower cost college, get some skills, and so on. But then if you are able, you can pay. And that has been the problem with our education system. We want everybody to get a degree. And then what will happen? Maybe then we import some other people to come and help us in other jobs. So that's how it's supposed to be. Basic education should be free, and everybody should get basic education. But then beyond that, the way it's supposed to be is that then you pay for it. But then those who pass, the government should be able to support them, and that's how to develop the nation.
You earlier touched on networking, and I just want to go back there. You said networking has brought you so far. So ideally, what should somebody be looking for in terms of networks? How do you actually build good networks? Who would be somebody you want to draw into your network? Again, how do you maintain a really good network? And how do you yourself as well become somebody who is a good network partner?
Now, for me, the first the first network that you should have is the public.
Okay.
Make sure that you are in touch with the public. Not only in touch, there are many things that you can do when you are in touch with the public. Some of the needs that are there at the public level, at the lower community level, they are so basic that most of us would actually support. And that, for me, that's the first kind of network that you need to do. So somebody comes to you, they're in day school. They've been chased away for school fees. So they've been chased home for school fees. And how much do they need? 1,500 shillings. You are in charge. Somebody has a need, How much do they need? 1,000 shillings. Or 500 sometimes. So for me, I think that's my core network. But then, of course, the other network that has been very useful for me are the people that we were in high school together. High school and actually university education together.
Yeah.
And we became friends, and we've maintained that kind of friendship. And so I don't want to mention names. Actually, most of them, they're very good friends of mine. But also, what do you bring to the network yourself? Can I tell you, maintaining networks is a very expensive thing. It's expensive. You have to invest. You have to invest.
Or
no, you have to invest in it. You have to invest time. Yes, you have to invest time. So you have to be there for your friends.
Yeah.
When they have a need, when they have a function, and even just to be together.
Sure.
So sometimes just to stay together and just to have a cup of tea. So that is one of those things that you have to do. And whenever they call you, can they rely on you? Do you rely on them? I've seen people when people have needs, they don't do anything. But then when they have needs themselves, they cry. They say, "Oh, this association, this church, this community doesn't care."
Yeah.
But did you care when somebody was going through trouble?
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have to keep doing is to make sure that you are useful to the community.
Yeah.
And people are very rational. That's an economic concept. We say that human beings are rational. People would always know. And in my village, they will always know. Whenever they have a fundraising, be it a pre-wedding party, or some, they even call me for very very basic things, and I have to give, even if it's 500, even if it's 1,000.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, my name is in their list. And I have colleagues who probably are even richer than me, but their name is not in their list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me tell you what that does even before God. One of the biggest troubles that I find, don't make only your networks be the rich
Mm.
or those at your peers, have networks all the way, even at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's a godly thing,
Yeah.
because it means you are not arrogant, you are not proud, you are able to listen to everybody.
Yeah.
My village elder calls me, and I listen to him, and he tells me, oh, there is this thing that is happening. We need 200 shillings because the water pipes, it rained, they busted, so we need to get labor. I sent the 200 shillings.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of network that I'm talking about. But then, of course, also at the higher level, so you need all of them, So whenever your peers call meeting, or even your seniors, those who are higher than me, when they call a meeting, you go. When they say they need support, you give support. And in that way, then you have a network that spans the entire spectrum of society.
What I'm gathering from all this, it seems like it's service.
It is?
Service.
Yes, it's service. It's service to community. Whether it's a church, whether it's a school, um, the primary school where I'm a patron, they call me. I'm a patron of the young people at my church, a local church. And whenever in fact, we have, let me say this so that some of you, we have a meeting every 3 times a year, which I fund, take them out. We talk, and we talk without. I mean, we say I'm able to mentor them. They ask me questions. I challenge them on various things. Yeah. So it's service to community, like you said, and it's expensive, like I said.
Yeah.
It's not cheap. So mean people, it's very difficult for mean people to have networks.
So for networks, there's a lot.
Oh, it's an investment in itself. But that's what you call social capital. It
True.
pays.
True.
It pays.
So mine would be, even as we close, is you seem to be involved in a lot of things. You are a leader in so many places. You're a businessman. You're a farmer. You're involved in community work. You go as far as to even do a bit of personal CSR. How are you able to balance all this, yet still have work and still have a family, have your personal time? How do you balance all this?
Yeah. I think I want to appreciate the support of my family, especially my wife. I think that's where every man should spring from, or every woman for that matter. Stability at home is very important, and so you have to really trust that the Lord will help you to have a stable family, a supportive wife, and I want to appreciate what she does. Now, and that's part of the balancing. I have to give my family their time. That's where it begins. First, I have to give God his time.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find time to pray. I need to find time to read the Word of God. I need to find time to fellowship. But of course, my family has been very supportive. So that balance. So the balance first. It doesn't begin with the networks that I talked about.
Yeah.
It begins in the closet with God, then my family, before I go out, and the church. Actually, my number 3 is the church.
Mm.
And I do a lot of work for church here in Nairobi and down at home. So the balance basically, and I think what am I trying to say here? Somehow God gives you wisdom to be able to balance some of these things. Yes, you can't go for everything, But the other thing is also not to be there for everything. Support, financial support. Sometimes you are not there when there's a fundraising. You give something. Yeah, but also that's what leadership is all about. You have to create time. Sometimes you have to reduce the amount of sleep,
Mm.
and therefore you to be available. I have a career. I have an employer. I have to satisfy my employer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have no job, and that means I can't even do some of the things that I need to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to, as a leader, you have to sacrifice sometimes yourself a bit. But that balance is very important. Beginning with God, the family, then the church, and now of course the workplace, and then now the society. So some of this, but also one of the things that I do, you create networks. So even in other places where uh, you talked about I'm a businessman, sometimes God also helps you. You get some good workers.
Mm.
So you give them instructions, they follow instructions, do this with this, do this with this,
Mm.
and you find things going on.
Yeah.
So I think those are some of the things that it's important to look at. But the aspect of sacrifice for a leader, you have to sacrifice. There is no other option. Sometimes you reduce your sleep, your comfort a little bit. One of the things about networks, if you love your comfort too much,
Mm.
you'll not go far. So sometimes even when it is inconvenient,
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
and your friend has called, you
Mm.
go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that you have to do.
So, what are you most happy about? What's this that gives you joy of all you've done with your life so far? In the same breath, what's something you've not yet explored that you'd want to explore? What's this that also wakes you up in the morning?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I have enjoyed most, let me say, it's my walk with Christ. I'm happy that by God's grace, me and my wife, we're close to 30 years since we got married. My work with God, I think, has been the center of all this, and I think that will continue.
Yeah.
Those two
Yeah.
will actually have to go on. Now, just thinking of the future, I want to do bigger investments as far as businesses are concerned.
Yeah.
I'll not be an employee forever.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I want to look at a number of investments. I want to just to see, but not even for myself. I was telling my wife the other day that I think God has given us enough for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of more impact for community and society.
Okay.
Um, yeah, sometimes there are things that I think I could do better.
Mm.
So those are some of the things that I'm thinking. So to give out to society. Um, it's going to be very sad that I was here. I fed myself, fed my family, and then I died.
Mm.
No, I want it to be known that this son of God was here. He made impact on society and community. So yes, and I agree with you. I don't think I've done anything much. I want to do more, and I'm asking God to help me, to guide me in that direction.
Prof, thank you very much for being with us today. Asante sana for giving us your time.
Thank you. I appreciate. Thank you for the privilege. Let's keep talking. We hope this will be useful to somebody. And thank you.
Lastly, with one word, what's one trait you think everybody should have? The most important trait to you that's been the most impactful?
Humility.
Okay.
Humility. Um, I had somebody, I don't know, I had somebody say that humility is the highest rank in the kingdom of God. Humility is very important.
Yeah.
Humility means um, even when somebody speaks ill about you, it doesn't hurt you. So as opposed to an ego. So humility for me is very key. And to know that we are nothing unless God makes us something. An ego is like a balloon, somebody simply need to get a pin and it bursts. But you can't, as a humble person is like a dead person. What can you do to them?
True.
True.
Again, asante sana. Thank you very much for being with us. That was What's the Truth. We'll see you next time.